Ebonridge Palace wasn't like other royal homes you see in fairy tales. It didn't sparkle, it didn't shine. From a distance it looked magnificent, with tall, sharp towers that scraped the gloomy gray clouds. Its dark stone walls seemed to absorb the sunlight, making the whole place feel cold even on a summer day. People in the nearby town whispered about it. They said it was a place of shadows, born from a history so dark it stained the very ground it stood on. They called it the Cursed Castle, a name that clung to it like the thick fog that often rolled down from the hills, swallowing the palace whole. The gardens were just as strange. The roses were a deep, dark red, almost black, and their thorns were unusually long and sharp. Statues of old kings and queens stood among the overgrown weeds, their stone eyes seeming to follow you as you walked past. It was said that at night, you could hear faint cries carried on the wind, sounds that didn't belong to any animal you knew. The townsfolk warned visitors to stay away. They said the palace remembered everything, every scream, every tear, and it held on to those memories, waiting for someone new to share them with. Despite its beauty, no one from the royal family had lived in Ebonridge for over 100 years. They had abandoned it, leaving everything behind. Dust covered priceless paintings and cobwebs draped over golden furniture like ghostly shrouds. The silence inside was heavy, a kind of quiet that feels loud, pressing in on your ears. Every creak of a floorboard, every rustle of the wind outside a cracked window sounded like a footstep in the empty halls. The palace was a giant sleeping monster, and everyone was afraid of the day it might wake up. I arrived on a Tuesday, my old car sputtering up the winding road to the palace gates. My name is Alex, and I'm a historian, or at least I'm trying to be. I came to study the palace's architecture to uncover its secrets. The caretaker, a stooped old man with eyes that had seen too much, handed me a heavy iron key. "Just one rule," he rasped, his voice like dry leaves skittering across pavement. "Stay out of the East Wing. It's not for visitors." His warning hung in the air, but all I could think about was the story I was going to write. The caretaker's warning only made me more curious. The East Wing. What was so special about it? The legend of Ebonridge Palace began with its builder, King Aldric the Cruel. He was a man whose heart was said to be as hard and cold as the stone he used to build his fortress. He taxed his people until they had nothing left, and he ruled with an iron fist. He wanted a palace that would show his power, a place that would make even the bravest knights tremble. He succeeded. The palace was not a home. It was a monument to his own vanity and a prison for all who lived under his rule. King Aldric's most prized possession was his throne. It wasn't made of gold or silver. It was carved from the heart of a single ancient black oak tree, a tree rumored to have grown on cursed ground. The wood was polished until it looked like a pool of shadows, and it was decorated with huge, blood-red rubies that seemed to glow with an inner fire. He called it the Crimson Throne. Legend said the throne was more than just a chair. It was alive. It was bound to Aldric's bloodline, and only those with his royal blood could command its power. The stories they told about the throne were horrifying. They said it whispered secrets to the king, secrets about his enemies, driving his paranoia to new heights. People claimed the rubies weren't just stones. They were the solidified blood of Aldric's victims. The throne fed on fear and pain, growing more powerful with every cruel act the king committed. The throne room was the coldest place in the palace, and servants would swear they saw ghostly figures kneeling before the empty seat, forever bound to the king's wicked legacy. But the throne's loyalty came with a terrible price. It demanded absolute devotion, not just from the king, but from his entire family. The curse stated that any betrayal within the bloodline would be met with the throne's ultimate wrath. King Aldric had a son, Prince Valerius, who was nothing like his father. He was kind and just, and he hated seeing his people suffer. One fateful night, he decided to end his father's reign of terror. He crept into the throne room, dagger in hand, ready to confront the king. It was a mistake he would never live to regret. The tale of Prince Valerius is the darkest chapter in the palace's history. As he approached his father, who sat slumped on the crimson throne, the room grew impossibly cold. The rubies on the throne began to pulse with a malevolent red light. Before the prince could even raise his weapon, the ancient oak wood of the throne seemed to come alive. Black, splintery tendrils, like the branches of a dead tree, shot out from the armrests and back. They wrapped around King Aldric, not to protect him, but to punish the betrayal that was about to happen. The king didn't even have time to scream. The branches tightened, and the king was gone, absorbed into the very wood of the throne he cherished. Prince Valerius stood frozen in horror. He was the new king now, the rightful heir. He thought the throne would obey him. He slowly reached out a hand to touch it, to claim his birthright. But the throne remembered the betrayal in his heart. The moment his fingers touched the wood, the same thorny branches lashed out, wrapping around his arm, his chest, his neck. The curse didn't care about good intentions. It only cared about the bloodline's broken promise. The prince's screams echoed through the palace, and then silence. That was the story I had read in the old books. That was the secret of the East Wing. Of course, I didn't believe it. Cursed thrones, ghostly branches. It sounded like a campfire story made up to scare children. So I ignored the caretaker's warning. The pull of the forbidden room was too strong. I found the door to the East Wing at the end of a long, dark corridor. It was thick, heavy oak, with a large iron lock. But the lock was rusted and broken. It seemed to be inviting me in. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of fear and excitement. I pushed the door open. A wave of stale, frigid air washed over me. The throne room was just as the legends described. It was huge and cavernous, with moonlight streaming through a high, grimy window. And there, in the center of the room, on a raised platform, sat the Crimson Throne. It was bigger and more menacing than I had imagined. The black wood seemed to drink the light from the room, and the rubies, oh, the rubies. They glittered in the pale moonlight, looking like fresh drops of blood. I took a step closer, my flashlight beam dancing across the polished surface. I should have run. I should have listened to the old man, but I couldn't. I was mesmerized. As I crept closer, a low whisper slithered through the air. It wasn't the wind. It sounded like dozens of voices, all murmuring at once. "Betrayer!" one hissed. "Blood!" another sighed. I spun around, my light cutting through the darkness. The room was empty, but when I turned back, I wasn't alone anymore. Shimmering, ghostly figures stood around the throne. There was a cruel-looking king and a terrified young prince, their faces twisted in eternal agony. They stared right through me, their eyes fixed on the horrible chair. My blood ran cold. I wanted to scream, but my throat was tight with fear. I started backing away, step by agonizing step. That's when the throne itself seemed to groan. It was a deep, ancient sound, like the cracking of old bones. The red rubies started to glow, pulsing slowly, like a monstrous beating heart. The whispers grew louder, swirling around my head, making me dizzy. "Sit," they commanded. "Join us." I saw a new ghostly figure begin to form near the throne, a figure holding a flashlight, a figure that looked exactly like me. I was about to become another one of its decorations. That's what finally broke the spell. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted through the dark corridors, the ghostly whispers chasing me, echoing in my ears. I burst out of the palace doors and didn't stop running until I reached my car. I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking so badly I could barely fit the key in the ignition. I sped away from Ebonridge Palace. The image of that horrible glowing throne burned into my mind. I drove for hours, not stopping until the sun came up and I was hundreds of miles away. I thought I had escaped. I was wrong. That night, back in my own apartment, I tried to relax in my favorite armchair. But something felt off. The chair felt harder than usual, colder. When I looked down, the fabric seemed darker, and the armrests felt strangely carved. A cold dread washed over me as I heard a faint whisper echo in my quiet living room. It was a familiar whisper, a voice from the palace. It said my name. The curse had followed me. The throne hadn't let me go. It never would. It's a part of me now. And I have a secret to tell you. You're sitting on it right now.